Welcome to Magical Moments with Alena Chapman, the place for you to break free from the norm and celebrate your life, because what we believe in our hearts becomes our reality. This is Magical Moments with Alena Chapman.
Welcome to Magical Moments for that ease and that betterment in your life. I'm your host, Alena Chapman, and you know, I have a magical nugget for you today. I love doing that. I want you to think about this. I'm going to say this phrase, and I just want you to think. Confidence or convenience, better than that. Convenience to isolation. And what do I mean by that? Well, our lives have been built around everything being more convenient. I mean, you got to think about it. You want to read a book? You don't have to go to the bookstore. You can get a Kindle and it comes to you. You don't even have to go to a library to look up knowledge because you got the internet. You don't even have to get a whole group of people together. You can just do a watch party. Okay? All this stuff is so convenient. We don't even have to cook. We don't even have to go to a restaurant. We can just have the food ordered and it comes to us very easy and very convenient and not much extra charge. So what we're actually doing, though, is that we are in this convenient world 24/7, and we're actually isolating ourselves from life and from other people. Even when I was driving in today, I saw people at the stoplight. Every single person was on the phone. Now, okay, I do that once in a while, especially since I work from home. A lot of people call me at odd times or they text me, and at a stoplight, I'll try to text fast. But for the majority of the time, you will not see me doing Facebook or anything else. And because I'm driving, I don't want to. I'm listening to music, for heaven's sakes. I don't want to. And plus, I kind of like to see the people. But people are just in this world of convenience. Now, this is something that we have never dealt with in our society before. And it's really causing an extreme amount of isolation. Anxiety is at its height. Depression is not something that it's not foreign anymore. Everybody knows depression, where I didn't even know what that was when I was growing up. And on top of that, we have less tolerance, less patience for things because we're always in our head. Now, gone are the groups. Gone are the real meetings. Gone are the person to person, the feeling of being with people and really knowing. I know Meetup it's all over the nation now, Meetup, and that's wonderful, but there's no commitment to it. There's no commitment to going. You can go, you can say you're going to go, and then, no, I don't think I'll go today. And the people at the Meetup are always different. So all of this can be very lonely. Can be harder to meet someone, meet a friend, meet a lover, meet anything, because we're always in our head. So I started thinking about this in a lot of ways. We have to build community in our lives. And one of the best ways I always think about is joining groups, not meetup groups, but actual groups. Like take a pottery class, take a Zumba class, take a class that goes hiking every Saturday, take something that has a group of people. Or even I am offering a wonderful group. It's online, but you're going to get to know them. I guarantee you'll get to know the people. It's free. Because I want to start to form community with everyone. I think it's important that we connect. But my group is going to be a little bit different. It's called the Green Terra Group of Sharing. And what is that? Well, the Green Terra is the Buddha of enlightened action. Action. And I love the meaning of her in the Buddha faith, because she is one that follows the guidance of her soul and spirit every step and is able to bring about what her heart is urging her to do. Isn't that cool? So this group, the Green Terra Group of Sharing, is a group that we're going to meet once a week, and we're going to start talking about concepts. But it's not me talk, you listen. I get sick of hearing myself talk, actually. I like to hear you talk. So I will toss a wonderful concept out there, and then we all discuss it. And it'll be like these nuggets I give you, but we talk about it, and we see how to employ it in our life or how to use it or if we want to. And I just think it would be fun. You'll get to know the people. You get to understand each other as friends. It's sort of like having a pen pal, but you get to see their face. If you're interested in this kind of knowledge, wisdom kind of group, and you think this is your cup of tea, and you would like to form community, then go to soulmanifesto.com. And right there on that page, you'll see, I'll say it again so you know, the Green Terra, the Buddha of Enlightened Action. It'll just say the Green Terra Sharing Group, okay? Or group of sharing. But just remember Green Terra. But go to soulmanifesto.com to find that. Now, speaking of these wonderful communities, I've got a very cool guest today. His name is Stefanos Sivandos. Now, Stefanos is a relational alchemist. Don't you like that? And a community builder, what we were talking about, and a change maker who facilitates transformational growth through his knowledge of neuro-empowerment practices, mindfulness, which we have talked about a lot on this channel, so this is fantastic, and integration of Eastern wisdom, diverse spiritual practices, and West psychology to improve, evolve, and enhance the quality of your relationships. Doesn't that sound fun? With that, I want to bring you on. Hello, Stefanos.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
I am wonderful. And we are just going to just love your accent through this whole show. So I'm going to get right to it because I do know what an alchemist is. I think most people do. But I love this twist you have on here, this relational alchemist. You got to explain that a little bit to us because that sounds really cool.
Of course. Firstly, thank you for having me on the show.
And of course.
In the most simplest of ways, I really just help people move from an undesirable place into a desirable place. Alchemy is almost transmutation or transformation. So through tools, through techniques, through different awareness practices, through support, and then building, cultivating, encouraging the individual, help them really move from that undesirable place within themselves and within their lives, within their relationships, into a more desirable place. It's more aligned with who they truly are, what their values are, and who they really want to be in the present moment as opposed to being dictated to by past versions of themselves.
Yes, I love this. Well, first of all, I have to say you're like I am, actually. I don't know if you know that. You're a curator. You take things from all different practices and studies and everything around the globe, and you bring it to the people in a way that they can take the best of everything to grow. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's definitely part of what I do, absolutely.
That is fantastic. That's fantastic. You must have a very open mind. Let's talk about this. So when people want to go forward in their lives, and they always have good intention, and they always get that urge from their heart. They always get that, I think I want to just start journaling today. I want to write that book eventually. Then all of a sudden, these old beliefs will come back in. I call it the critical mind, or things will come back in that will, and this is the funny thing, Stefanos. It doesn't just pop into their head and say it. No. The critical mind is a sneaky thing. Instead, when you're going to go to the coffee shop and write, instead you find, I got to put in that extra load of laundry. Oh my gosh, I've got to go do those kids. I've got to go take care. You know what? I forgot to go grocery shopping. The day is gone and I didn't get to do what I wanted to do. Do you see? And they do that sabotage. That's sabotage. So how do you get a person to understand that sabotage when they have that urging in their heart and they're coming to you because they don't know why they're not doing it, you know?
Yeah, the sabotage is a product. It's a byproduct of essentially fear. And so change can be very daunting for many of us. And so when we begin to understand how the psyche operates, it can give us more what I call intelligent hope and awareness around the subtlety of our behaviours. And so when we want to make some change, we want to do something better in our lives for ourselves and maybe even for others, anxiety can come up. And often the anxiety comes from a place of change. Now, the ego self, the part of the self, because we're composed of all these different parts.
We are a complex human being, aren't we?
We are complex. Now, we're not complicated so much, but we are complex. There's layers to us. The complication or the difficulty comes more in not understanding ourselves and being confused and living from fear and perpetual fear. And because we're so accustomed to the fear, it's the norm for us, so we can't really see beyond it or through it. And
That's true.
Understanding that the ego self, the part of the self that identifies with the world, that has its routines, that has its familiar structures, people, processes, ways of thinking, ways of being, belief systems, models of reality, emotional reactions to certain experiences. You know, we're just accustomed to maybe waking up in the morning and rolling out on a particular side of the bed, or we're accustomed to maybe dropping our coffee and getting really agitated when that happens. And we have these ingrained reactions that over time have become what we think is completely us. It's not necessarily true.
Yes.
So when the ego starts to go through a place, because your conscious mind maybe makes up 5% of your entire thinking and feeling being, your entire psyche, so to speak.
Yes. And that's because we are not in our conscious mind most of the time.
Correct. We're largely in our unconscious self. And so that's about 95%. And so
exactly.
Just an interesting side note, we have 60 to 70, 75,000 thoughts a day. 95% of those thoughts are recycled thoughts, and they're really unconscious. And so we're not really living in the present moment. We're just living in our past. And Dr. Joe Dispenza speaks a lot to this, and he's doing great work in the world around this. So you can look further into that. However, what's happening is we're just living past versions of ourselves in the present moment, therefore not really living in the present moment. And so when the ego is when the self is about to experience change, because we've got that 5% conscious self that's pretty clear, and it says, well, I want to start journaling, or I want to start giving to myself, or I want to start doing something good in the community, or I want to apply for another job, or I want to quit this job and I want to go travel, or the ego says, whoa. Why do we want to go do that? That's change. That's unfamiliar. And mostly for most of us, anything that's unfamiliar is unsafe. And so all of a sudden, the stress hormones start to be released. The areas of the brain that are worried or produce fear or produce anxiety, they start to act up. They start to become more alert, and they give us these signals that change is not good, and we start to justify and find all the excuses and the reasons why change is necessary.
Stepping outside that comfort zone is very hard. It is.
It is, yeah. And so, we start to have these thoughts. The job that we've got is great. We don't need to change it. It makes good money. There's good people there. Yeah, okay, maybe the boss isn't too nice, but, everyone else is good and it's close to home. And do I really need to change? No, I don't need to do that. And so these fears start coming in. So we see them as self-sabotage, but they're not necessarily self-sabotage. It's more protective.
Yes.
The protective mechanisms that are unfolding within our psyche.
In our so-called protective and old belief, ego or critical mind, whatever you like to call it, that is what's presenting a protection device, which we have labeled sabotage. And yes, it's true. It's very true. It is a protective device. However, if we don't want it, we have to change it. But I have another question. I know that you also have this wonderful, wonderful group, or you're talking about the male, the sacredness of the masculine ritual. Now, to me, ritual is also community, because communities do ritual. And I also want to lead into that, but let's talk I do believe that if people are going through a change, the first thing I always like to tell people is to think of people who are, or even in the groups that I present, I always put them into groups because that support from other like-minded people who are either doing the same thing or have achieved it already helps you to step out of the comfort zone. It makes that area a little less scary, that unknown. Do you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. We're relational beings and we need support in our lives, particularly when we're stepping into the unknown or when we're stepping into the unfamiliar. And as a side note, after a while of becoming accustomed to stepping into the unknown or the unfamiliar,
yes,
that process becomes somewhat the norm.
Yes.
And we feel better about ourselves and we feel better about our lives. And we carry greater confidence because we have an experience of, I've stepped into the unknown and I haven't died. I can maybe keep doing this. And that experience propels us forward as well.
I think, you're right. I think you're 100% right because I remember, I've always kind of stepped out of the norm of what is normal in life. And much to my poor parents, who were like, what are you doing now? But that has always been me. But to really step out, I remember, and I've told this story, the biggest thing I had done that made all of my protective, critical mind, ego, old beliefs, I'm trying to cover it all right there. But all that was just coming at me to try and protect me was when I went to get a mortgage on my first house. And I know that sounds so silly. Here, no, I wasn't climbing Mount Everest. I wasn't jumping out of a plane. No, it was getting a mortgage. But to me, that was entering a world that I had never been a part of. That was entering a world that I knew the dangers of. There were lawyers in there. There were people who really knew what they were doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just getting a mortgage, and this was new to me. And all that kept coming in my head was, they're going to eat you alive. But I had eventually, like I've told people this story, I had to talk that down. And it took the confidence that I had had in the past to talk that down. I didn't have a group. That's what a group helps you do, or that's what a mentor helps you do. I didn't have that at the time. But I'll tell you something. That stepping out and doing something when everything was saying no, but I knew that this was going to move me and my family forward, I had to do it, really did create something in me that I love the change now. I love the excitement of the change. I love to get things moving now. And I most certainly have no trouble stepping out of the box if I feel it needs to be done.
Yeah.
It creates really a courage in you.
Yeah. I remember as a young child, I grew up in a very volatile family environment.
Yes.
And so change wasn't something that I really enjoyed.
Sure.
I got very accustomed to it from a place of fear and survival, but it wasn't something that I enjoyed. And at the same time, it was very familiar to me. So I was drawn to it. And so the blessing in disguise was that I had this familiarity and tolerance for change, and in fact would sometimes pursue extreme change. I mean, for example, packed up my bags, got a one-way ticket to Europe when I was a lot younger, and I worked on cruise ships, and I did all the adventurous things, and almost had no fear, which didn't always work for me, though, because it wasn't coming from a healthy place. It was coming from a place of, I'm accustomed to volatility, I need more of it, but at the same time, I was also very averse to it because the volatility that I experienced was painful and violent and aberrant, and it wasn't healthy.
Right.
So until I really healed those parts of me and healed those experiences within me, my tolerance for change shifted towards a healthy expression of that, which wasn't coming from fear and wasn't coupled with stress and anxiety and high-risk situations.
That's good.
Which a lot of men do. Right? A lot of, and part of that is because of our hormonal profiling and our biological makeup and what culture sort of dictates to us as well. So males have a greater propensity for risk and so forth. And there's a lot of studies that have been done on this.
They do.
And so that I had to really move through that. And it's not that I don't take risks now, and it's not that I don't enjoy adventure. I do. But the place where it comes from, it's very different.
That's big. That's what's so big. It's not wrong to want to jump out into a change. It's okay to want to change. It's okay to want to move forward. But it's where it's coming from. And it's just like any other action that you do. If you are coming from a place of volatility or wildness or not understanding, or you're trying to fill a void in you, or you're trying to, like you, Stefanos, it was just feeding that need for change that you had experienced in your life. And you had controversy about that, but you had to have it. It's not stable. And so when you go out and you do the change, it's still not stable. But if it's just like everything, and it's just like relationships, when you have to be whole, folks. You have to do the work. And I don't even like to call it work. Yesterday, I was interviewed by Law of Attraction Network, and we were talking about manifestation. And one of the things was, I said, the journey of learning about yourself, everybody calls it work. It's not work. Every step you get something great. To me, that's kind of like an award system. I mean, I love it. You do the step and, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. Oh my gosh, I understand. Oh my gosh, I finally can let go. You know what I mean? Though that's not work. That's like being free. It's steps to freedom. So I think we should rename that, by the way. I'm going to mark that down in my book. But but you touched on something so important. It's that wholeness. And I think women tend to have so many areas where we can go to learn about ourselves and to really to start to explore. Men do not have that many areas. They don't have a lot of groups out there, do they? I've seen some men stand up and actually tell me that. Is that true?
The men's space is growing. Okay. There is great support. It may be not as obvious as women's groups or women's support groups. However, there is space for men to connect with other men and learn about each other and develop new tribe. I'll give you a couple of examples of that. So I'm part of an organisation called Sacred Sons, and we're doing great things around not only the US but around the world, globally in different ways. Now, we're quite new. We've been around for a couple of years. There are places, there are organisations such as, let me think here, Mankind Project. Sorry, the name just eluded me for a moment. The Mankind Project has been around for many, many years. They have millions of followers on social media, and they've really established a strong presence in the community for men's work and an access point for men to come and go deep in immersive experiences, but also have continued support on a weekly and bi-weekly basis, monthly basis.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, and so the Mankind Project is great, and I've been part of that in the past as well, and they had some amazing facilitators, and so men's work is growing, and men's work is definitely on the rise, and it's just not as obvious.
Interesting.
Yet. Because we seem to think that, here's the thing, when one of us suffer, and when I say one of us, I'm speaking to, there are differences with who we are aesthetically. There's gender differences, there's race differences, there's age differences, skin colour and so forth. And when someone is oppressing and someone is being oppressed, we tend to focus on the person that's being oppressed, and they are the ones that are suffering the most. And they are suffering.
They are,
What we forget, though, is that the oppressors are also suffering.
Yes. Yes.
So
very much so.
If we believe that men have been oppressive over many years, and that's only some men, not all men have. So we can't.
Yeah, never do a wide sweep. Yeah, true.
Of course. But if we're generalizing to some capacity, we're looking at the greater collective. When we oppress, we don't only oppress others, quote unquote, outside of ourselves, we're oppressing ourselves.
Yes.
And the issue is that we have suffered collectively as a community. Whilst we've done many amazing things in our society, we're experiencing some of the most peaceful times. Technology has taken us and advanced our culture and our society.
Yes, yes.
At the beginning of this, you also mentioned isolation. We are more technologically connected, more than ever, yet we are more isolated than we ever have been.
That's right. We are.
And we miss that community. You know, we so many of us are waking up in the morning, we're jumping in a cube, which is our car or a train or a bus or a tram. We're then sitting in a cube. We're then coming home in a cube. And then we're then coming home to a cube. And we've got fast dinners, fast TV.
Everything's fast.
Whatever it is. And we repeat the same cycles.
And we repeat it over and over.
Connection. Yeah.
We do. I see people, and you know, even on the subway, there will not be one person looking up from their phone, not even to say hello. And you know, it becomes, that isolation becomes a very severe comfort zone. And that's what we don't realize. All of a sudden, our phone is our friend. And the people who we haven't even met on that phone are our friends. But the people right in front of us, we can't even look up and say hello, because that is suddenly stepping out of the comfort zone we have created for ourselves. That's scary. You are listening to Magical Moments, and I'm your host, Alena Chapman. And as you know, we're all about the ease and betterment in your life. And we're going to be right back, because this is an important message to help us connect to ourselves and to each other.
Thanks for listening. Your weekend continues with Magical Moments featuring Alena Chapman right now.
Welcome back to Magical Moments. I'm your host, Alena Chapman. And I just want to recap just a bit, because this is cool stuff, guys. We're talking about, number one, we talked about how we sabotage ourselves. We were talking about that. And then we led into how we grow with groups. But then we also talked about how this isolation that we're forming for ourselves, and how men are forming that for themselves, how women are forming that for themselves, this isolation that's now becoming our comfort zone. How do we step out into that? How do we continue to grow? And just to give you a heads up, guys, YouTube, I do the YouTube. I watch the YouTube. When I start on a new subject, I always start with YouTube. But let me tell you, YouTube only gives you the information that is if you're looking for information or want to learn about something new, it's the basics. If you want to learn, you have to go deeper. You have to go deeper into things. But I want to get back with Stefanos, and I want to talk a little bit about, we understand now that we are getting isolated, and how when we've created this comfort zone, how do we get into starting to step out into groups that are just feeling that connection again?
It begins with self.
Always.
And so at some point, we need to realize that the way that we are living our lives is just not working for us anymore. It really, transformation begins and ends, really. It's an inside job. And so, that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink.
Yes.
Like you have
common.
To at some point, you have to at some point really be aware that you're just not happy with the life that you're living. And then from that point of awareness, that initial onset of awareness, you can seek. We are relational beings. We are tribal, community-based beings. That's how we've evolved. That's actually how we've survived and managed to thrive.
It's the only way we could survive. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that solitude isn't important. That doesn't mean that self-reliance doesn't have a place. Absolutely, it has a place. In combination and in harmony with being part of a community, to have sincere reflection, to be guided, to look for insight, to look for a new perspective.
Very important.
And so I always say if people are looking for change and they've come to that place within themselves where enough's enough and they really want to do something different and be someone different, then get as clear as you can on your own with respect to what that looks like, and then find a tribe that mimics that or aligns with that. Find a group of people that align with that to support you on your journey so they can truly see you for who you are and who you want to become.
Yes.
Now, sometimes we get scared because we don't always get it right, and rejection can be it's a key fear that humans hold. We are very reluctant to go and take risks, to ask that girl out or ask that boy out or go for that job or buy that house, because we're scared of rejection. Will the mortgage company reject me? Will she reject me? Will I
so silly.
Job?
Yes.
It's horrible, right?
It is horrible. You know, Waldo Emerson wrote a quote that I have hanging on my wall, and is, we are meant to be all the experiments in life. Take all those experiments in life, because it's the more experiments that you take is what this is all about. It's what life is all about. And so when you want to go ask that girl out, that's an experiment. When you go for that new job, it's an experiment. Stop putting all death and life and birth and marriage and everything else wrapped up into that decision. It's just an experiment. It's just a try. And when you think of things just being a try, then you're flexible. That means if it doesn't work one way and you really want it, you feel free to try it another way. The fear comes because we put so incredible much weight on it, on the decision. And that's what keeps us from walking out. But if we really thought that everything was an experiment, that that's what we're here to do, wow, what would you accomplish? You know?
That perspective switch is very empowering.
Yeah, I think so too. That's why I have it on my wall. Yeah, it's true, isn't it? Yeah, you can use that with your clients too. It's a good one. But it's important. Now, you have been sneaking this word in, so we're going to talk about it. I don't know if anybody else has heard it, but I have heard it loud and clear. You don't say group, and you don't say to community too much. You say tribe. You like that word, tribe. Now that leads me to something, because we are talking, you have a little bit to say. You had a topic that you were trying to toss over to me, and you were saying the dying art of the masculine sacred ritual. Now, yeah. Now, in a community of men, and in history, and this is another thing. A lot of communities are failing this now. We don't have that community. When the men always have some kind of rite of passage, some kind of ritual. Mm-hmm. Now, that is what empowered. Women had it too. We didn't voice it as much as men did, but everyone has had a rite of passage. That has been kind of lost. I would love you to define what you think of the masculine sacred ritual. What does that mean to you?
We all have sacred rituals, and there's a connection to, we have key or primary stages of development as we evolve as humans, and they're all important. They're all equally important in different ways. However, there's three particular stages of our development where, when certain things occur, it can more likely ensure a healthy adult life. And so the ages of 0 to 7, 7 to 12, 12 to 17. those 3 developmental stages during our childhood, youth, adolescence, etc.
Right.
are very important for us in terms of how we learn to give and receive love, how we see ourselves, what our values are, our belief systems, what we're attracted to and repelled by. So we form a lot of this during these formative years. We develop a lot of this, we create this within ourselves during these formative years. And what's happened is females and women have a very distinct biological rite of passage in terms of sacred ritual, which is the menstrual cycle.
And that bonds us. That does bond us to each other.
Yeah, definitely. And once upon a time, it bonded communities and tribes, men and women, everyone.
Yeah, it did.
And so that's a transition into, okay, you were a child, now you're a woman. Right. Now, of course, there's more than just that, but that's the beginning stages.
It's the beginning. It is.
Clear.
Yes.
Males don't have that.
No.
And so we must rely on a more cultural rite of passage, something that is conducted in the group or the environment or the community, for us to get clear on we are transitioning now from one phase to another. In other words, boyhood to manhood. Now, what's happened in our lives is, for many reasons, many reasons, one of them being we have busied ourselves. Divorce rates are high. People know themselves less. There's more stress and anxiety in the world. Our socioeconomic structures, don't necessarily support this. Boys don't have that community of men, father, uncle, older brothers, that are healthy and grounded and that are very deliberate in their expression of rites of passages and transitions and sacred rituals. And so what happens is when boys are moving through that phase of 11, 12, 13, 14 years of age, and hormones are increasing substantially and they're physiologically changing rapidly, they will develop their own rite of passage. And because of the hormonal profile changing and because of what's happening generally in their culture, they will move towards extreme rites of passage for a couple of reasons. One, because of their curiosity, their innate curiosity and exploration. Two, because they want to impress upon their fathers their worthiness, so they're seeking father approval, especially if there's a distance or an unhealthy relationship in that dynamic. Because we yearn for that. It's a basic need that we have as children, to seek approval for those that we once deify and often continue to deify, which is our parents. And so the boys will do these extreme things, seek the approval. And usually it's in physical feats or it's something that goes against the grain, and that becomes somewhat a habit. And then we develop unhealthy tendencies and practices of how we see ourselves and how we treat others and how we behave in society. And so what we've got we've got an epidemic of 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old men that are still seeking to be initiated into healthy manhood. 40-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 50-year-old men. But then we've got young kids, young boys looking to these older men thinking, oh, these men are older. Surely they can show me and guide me, yet they can't. And so we're at a point where we have to take the self-responsibility and do it ourselves to an extent. Or when I say do it ourselves, actively seek, deliberately seek healthy men that can show us these paths and then begin to develop that tribe of healthy men from the inside out.
Interesting. And that's where groups come in.
Yeah.
These groups that you have mentioned.
And forming groups, and we all have to have a responsibility for that, I believe.
Well, I think women need that kind of thing too. Women need, we like you said, we do have that rite of passage. But, you know, it's interesting. When I was in college, and it was men and women in a group, and my family, the rite of passage was actually academic. That was the rite of passage. I didn't think anybody lived if they didn't go to college. That's how I was raised. That was my right. And I was not an adult until I was out of college. That's how my family said it. And so everything was geared academically. Each family can form that those rites of passage for their kids, and that was my family's. But I did align myself. What helped me the very, very, very most was the groups I always surrounded myself with. And I remember we would go out on Friday night and have a glass of wine or something and sit, and then the brainstorming. Everybody in that group, we didn't all want to be the same thing. I was going to be a musician, a professor of music. Someone else was going to be a mayor. One other person wanted to revolutionize energy. We all had different things, but it's so when you're looking for someone of like in your groups, they don't have to be exactly like you. How boring is that? But
That's right.
People who have the mindset of what you're looking for, people who have that mindset of growth, of that rite of passage, of that creating something bigger. That in itself, I think, was my own personal rite of passage. All of a sudden, I was aligning with people who wanted to change the world. I think when I know what we're talking about, but I'm saying now in this society, it's hard to have those rites of passage. Each family kind of has to have, with everyone moving everywhere, with in-laws and grandparents being thousands of miles away, with people being busy, or families not, sometimes you got a lot of single parents even. We can create this rite of passage for our kids. We can create that feeling of graduating into adulthood, graduating into a teenager, graduating into even a middle adult. But we have to create that. And you know what I'm saying? And it does help, but it also helps to align with people in a group that feed the future. Everyone from my group did what we all brainstormed about. We all went after our dreams. Isn't that amazing? That aligning of group is so important in my eyes.
So important. And having similarity, a balance of similarity and familiarity and diversity in that group is deeply healing, deeply beneficial for us.
So we've got a bunch of men, you said, in their 50s, 60s, and 80s. Also, we have men in their 40s. We have men in their 30s who have never experienced this rite of passage, it's not too late. And what this group that you belong to, what is the rite of passage in there? Do they even have a rite of passage?
Absolutely. And so we take men through initiations. We do deep shadow work with men as well. So part of the initiations that we take men through are anywhere from 2 to 4 day initiatory periods. And then, of course, there's ongoing support, whether it be virtually or in person or both. And we're developing different pods around the US as a starting point. And we're also initiating men into facilitation, how to facilitate
Interesting.
their own pods
I
and
love
take
it.
that back to their towns and cities and areas and so forth. And then develop weekly men's groups and men's circles and getting together where men can be honest and open and express themselves and really and deal with, instead of dealing with things and life all on their own without any support, they get to do that with feedback and reflection, having honest reflection from others.
Isn't that nice? That is very nice. And it's needed. Men need to talk just as much as women. And the growth that I think the connection is so important. I've always been one who feels that community is so incredibly needed. And I'm always searching for community. I'm always looking for people, because I think what we gain in a community is we gain knowledge. We gain insight that we would never have. We gain differences but the same. We get to learn that we are okay as we are because everybody's having almost the same problem as I am. We learn that it's okay to be human, and we learn that we always have a lot to learn. I think community allows us to be vulnerable. Community allows us to be strong, and community allows us to share. And without that community, we can't get that from an iPhone. We can't get that from a Kindle. We can't get that from a Zoom call. We have to start talking real and not just, forming a real community. It takes getting to know the people, being consistent, always showing up. And that's when the change starts to happen. Communities are very powerful. I do think building communities is a very important future for our society.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've got this. And the ritual, I love it. The dying of the masculine sacred ritual is important. I think we all need those rituals in our life, and we do have them. It's just, what do we choose to be our ritual, which is another topic right there. But that ritual that can move us forward, I think every community has its own ritual. It's just not spoken. And it is the showing up. It is the work that's involved in forming the relationships. It is in the group in college even, it was, what are we doing? What are we doing to make things happen in our lives? These are all steps forward that are rituals. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. And the more deliberate our rituals are, the more deliberate our practices are, the more likelihood of success we will achieve. And success being defined in this context by building community, building cohesion, connection in community, feeling supported, not feeling alone and isolated, knowing that if we have a problem or an issue, we can go to someone or people within that community, within that group.
See, yeah, exactly. And it's so funny, when I saw community starting to fall or not be around, that's when I saw all of a sudden the statistics, 2014, 2013, statistics about anxiety being an epidemic started. Isn't that interesting? Because we get into our heads too much. So it's really, if you're going to jump out of your comfort zone, one of the very first steps is start to find a group that aligns with where you are and where you want to go. Who do you want to be when you grow up, I always say. And if it's something that maybe I'm interested in investing, I don't know anything about it. Well, don't let that stop you. Step out into it. There are tons of groups out there that talk about investing. Just go and listen. It's just an experiment. It's just an experiment. Just go and listen and see what you think. Feed yourself, in that way, to start forming, get with people that are aligning like you, where you want to go. It's a very good, powerful first step. And it's getting out from your own head and that critical mind. So it is interesting. I do think community helps with conquering fear. I do think it's community that helps you to step out of the comfort zone. I do think it's community that helps you to see so that the outside the comfort zone is not so foreign. Community can help you get a grasp that it really isn't so foreign and you can do it. It's important. Yeah,
and that community helps us see, know, and feel a different perspective so that we can get out of our own way and remove ourselves from the stuckness that we are in. And which is we produce that ourselves because of our habitual patterns of fear.
Yes, we do. We're habitual people. We are so habitual. It's awful. So you really have to. I love, for a lot of us, we don't even realize the habitualness that we are. But you guys, tonight, why don't you just grab that hot cup of tea and sit down for a minute with a pad of paper and just write out 3 days of your schedule. And I mean, not the meetings that you had, but what did you do in the morning when you got up? What did you do when you got home? What did you do for lunch? What did you do in your office? Did you do a situation differently or always the same? Take a look at your life, and I bet you'll start seeing the habits. The habits will come out glaring at you. And then you have the choice. Do I want to change that habit? Or how can I be more effective here? Or how can I decide to step out of here? And maybe I need a group that I want to get into to help me step out of this habit. But we don't realize how habitual we are. Don't you find that when you're speaking with people, they don't understand that habitual thing at all?
Because we're so stuck in it. That's really what it is. We're so in it that we can't see anything outside of it, and we're so reluctant to change.
Yes.
So scared that if we change, life will get worse, or life will become really quote unquote bad. And so we just avoid the change, and we just do with what we know because that's safer.
Safe. It's safe.
Yeah.
It's so safe. And yet, your path is the adventure. It really is. Your path is the adventure. And that's the fun part. And it is worth it. It is worth it to take. People will not go anywhere. You can always fall back into your comfort zone. But don't you owe it to yourself to try, to experiment, gosh, the world is paved with regret. Paved with it. But I'll tell you what, there are those people that are 97, 98, saying, I loved every moment. Now, wouldn't that be cool to say? I loved every moment of my life. And it starts today, folks. It starts today. And it doesn't have to be big. You know me, I'm the baby step person. What about Bob? So try something. Look for a group. Start that way. Look for a group that's something that you're interested in. See about the community. If you're interested, for instance, and I'm serious, if you are interested in that community of wisdom and growth and interesting concepts and insights that, my gosh, you get it here on the show, but just put that on steroids in this group, then look into the Green Terra group on soulmanifesto.com. It's free. And we're going to meet once a week. And you will see everybody's face. And everyone will be there every week to give you that support. That's why I'm doing it. And that's why I'm doing it free. To build that community that I find so important. So that's one group. If you need something else, look for something else. Stefanos, how can people look up you and all about the tribe and learning and getting over that fear? How can they contact you?
Yes, absolutely. So you can reach out to me on my website, stefanosstefandos.com. I'll spell that very quickly, StefanosSifandos.com. And they're my social media handles as well. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Stefanos Stefandos.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. You have brought incredible insight to everyone. I loved having you on the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it so much.
Oh, yes. And that accent. I could listen to it all day. And for everyone out there, stay connected to yourself, that beautiful inside inner divine, and to the divine, the spirit, and definitely to each other. Namaste.
This has been Magical Moments with Alena, featuring Alena Chapman. If you missed an episode, download it now on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, CastBox, Deezer, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform. Learn more online at soulmanifesto.com.
Podcasts by Federated Media.